Fire away. I know we got questions. You know I don't do the whole, what do they call that, intro thing? Or, opening statement. Yeah.
Made a difficult decision last week in this to make a switch at kicker, and we know your affinity for Badgley, but I think that probably also extended to Riley as well. So just you know, as a coach, no matter how many years you've been in, how difficult is it to make that decision, and I guess how much has Badge earned this opportunity?
Yeah, I'm glad you phrased the question that way, because I will say that it is definitely difficult. You know, Riley's just a great person, and he's a very, very hard worker and extremely committed to his craft and being a kicker. So anyway, you obviously hate that, and really the decision was actually to kick one guy over the other, and then the decision to cut a guy is kind of a totally separate decision. I do know this: when you're the last specialist or an extra specialist on a roster, it's never a good spot. You know, it's hard to carry extra guys, especially this time of year. So that kind of is a separate situation there. But anyways, to go to the decision with Riley and Badgley, really it's fairly simple. I think I had actually mentioned to you guys, I think coming off the Charger game, that we had put the pressure on him a little bit, and no one really asked me what did that mean, but I threw it out there for you. But anyway, nobody really asked what that meant, but what that did mean is internally we had those guys competing in practice, and so they would each get roughly 6 kicks a day, and we kicked them at least twice a week, so it was 12 kicks a week. And over the course of 6 weeks, Badgley had been better, and we didn't want to rush to make that decision right away. We felt like he deserved it, you know, as fair of an opportunity as we could have given him. But it was clear at the end of the day that he was playing better. And so ultimately, the way that I handle those decisions, I mean, my job is to really have the best interest of the whole team in mind, or the whole locker room and all those players sitting in that meeting. And it's not just one person, but it's really, I have a responsibility to be fair to all of them by playing whoever, you know, we think's the best player. With a kicker, it's pretty clear. I mean, makes and misses and percentages. And I do think that practice matters, and I do think that players trend towards what their practice stuff is. And to give you an example of that, I would tell you, when I was in Philadelphia, obviously we had Jake Elliott, who I think everybody thinks is a great player, and he was back then too, but there was a year where he was down a little bit, and I was talking to the media, and they were, you know, there was a guy beating him up and trying to give me a hard time about, you know, why I thought he was a good player. And I said, well, I mean, he's missed a few kicks. Some of them were situational kicks, very long in Pittsburgh in tough situations with 3 seconds left in the half. It was that or the Hail Mary. We elected to do that. That dropped his percentage down. But ultimately, his practice numbers were really good. And if you watch him right now, he's hitting, like, his practice numbers, you know. So it's like, so to me, you have a large sample size in practice. In games, you have a very small sample size. And obviously, Riley had played well for us in games. But ultimately, that bigger sample size was in Badgley's favor.
Is your comfort level with Badgley playing to that, too, from last year and kicking for a game right veteran who's done it in games?
Yeah, I have a lot of comfort in Badgley, but the truth is I felt good about Riley too. Like Dan and I were talking about it, but you know, on that Charger kick, the game winner, like I had no doubt that he was going to make that, and that's really what he's been, a very effective kicker from short range. He's better than a lot of guys in this league kicking from shorter distances. As you get further and further, his numbers start to fall, as do everybody's, but maybe his a little bit more than some in the league. But when you do look at his numbers, he's got good numbers. I mean, he played well for us, so it was definitely tough, but ultimately it was fairly clear to all of us, I think. But yeah, I feel very comfortable in Badgley. The one thing I love about him is, you know, he swings. He's going to swing at the ball the exact same way every single time. It doesn't matter if it's a 53-yarder or if it's whatever, 22-yarder. He's going to approach the ball the same way every single time. He's very consistent, and mentally, he really doesn't waver, make, miss. He knows that he's going to miss some. We all do. Obviously, we hope not very many, but he's very, very flat line.
Yeah.
I would say ultimately both those guys are very comparable that way. So I don't think there's probably much difference in terms of game management. And, you know, we were thinking we could have kicked one guy 8 yards further than the other. Not at all. I would say very similar.
Missed a couple extra points. Now, big picture, we're a couple years into this 33-yard extra point thing. How much has that become, we expect you to go out and knock that through every time?
Yeah, I think you expect them to knock that kick through every time, but reality also says that, like the league average, I don't know what it is right now, but the last few years has been around 94%. So everybody misses some, or most guys miss some, which 94% means you miss one or two throughout the course of a year, and I think that's pretty standard amongst the league. So you expect them to make it, but also reality out there says, you know, most guys miss one or two.
The expectations have gone up from when you started it, and it seemed like, wow, this was a big jump to now where it's become the norm.
Yeah, I feel like every year these guys just collectively as a group, it's just better and better and better and better. And some of these guys are hitting, you know, deeper kicks too, you know, and all that. And I do think that the long field goal thing is a little bit of a separate conversation. I think now you're starting to draw in some analytics and what's the down and distance and going for it. Obviously, we go for it a lot in that situation. Some of those are because it's maybe further than we're comfortable kicking. Some of it's because the analytics say for us that, you know, being more aggressive is maybe a better thing.
I have some areas, but I'm curious for you, when you came here in 21, when things were lean, right, that first season and a half, to be where you guys are now on the verge of winning a division championship. I know you still have to take care of the business, but what does it mean? How important is it to have accomplished this to this point, and what do you think it means to the city and, you know, the organization, I guess, to, after 30 years maybe in that?
Yeah, oh man, there's a lot to that. I don't know. I feel like, you know, there's been a lot of hard work. I know that. None of this stuff's come easy. I really credit our head coach and the organization. Brad's done a great job acquiring players, and Dan's done an incredible job. I think our staff's been outstanding. Obviously, Ben and AG and those guys, I mean, every week giving ourselves a chance to win. Those guys do a great job. So I think there's a certain level of pride in the fact that you're helping be a part of turning something around. I think that's probably the most fulfilling thing you could be in this profession. But at the same time, I also think that as a coach, your focus is just so much on the next game. It's really like the next play, and then after you make it through that game, you're like, okay, right away, you know, you're into the next game, and you're already thinking about whatever, protecting the punt or, you know, whatever it is that you're going to do. But so I don't think really coaches do a good job of putting that all into perspective, at least not now. But I think, you know, hopefully we'll be able to look back and say, hey, we did something special there.
A couple about kickoff returns. First, just about your team's performance this year. I think you're in the top 10 in attempted returns, but just haven't been able to break that big one. We know the high standard you hold the punt return to with Heaven Khalif, but why do you think you haven't been able to break through as a
Yeah, in the
kickoff
return game. On kickoff return, you know, we haven't necessarily broken through on the big one, but I think if you look at drive start on the player, drive start's like 6 in the league or whatever. So, you know, there's always that conversation. There's a lot of people that look at return yards, and sometimes they look at, well, if you return a kickoff from -5 yards deep, that's counted into your return. So you get to the 25, but you took it 5 yards out of the end zone, you got a 30-yard return. And versus us, maybe we have a 25-yard return, but we brought it out from the +2, so it's at the 27. So if you look at the return yards, you say, well, they're not as good, but you look at the drive start, you say they're better. So for us, I would put most of our emphasis on drive start on both those phases, kickoff and kickoff return, not the number of yards given up or gained. That would be the important stat to me. I think we're pretty good in both those. I think our kickoff might be first in the league and drive start. But anyway, and then on the punt return stuff, there is a lot to that punt play. And I think as this game's progressed and just the situations that occur inside of a game. And I'll give you an example. Kansas City, we were playing them early in the year, obviously the first game. and we got a lead. We jumped out early. We got a lead, and now they're punting. They're punting around midfield. They got a punter who's throwing the ball, and they've had some fakes in their background, their pass, and really the most important thing becomes winning the football game. And the individual or the unit goal of being great on punt return or getting Leaf a bunch of return yards really takes a backseat. I think if you do a good job of coaching, and you know, the ego or whatever inside of a coach wants to, you know, his side of the ball to be good statistically, but really the first and the most important goal for us, and I say it every week after the game to our players, is winning the game. And as long as we win the game, it's all good. And whatever we got to do that, and if that means we're backing off the gas pedal on some of the return game and we're being a little bit more conservative and that makes it a little bit harder to get started, then we'll do that. So I do think there's some of that, and I'm not saying that that's the only reason there. And then obviously punt return, the next thing you look at is where's the opponent punting. If they're punting around midfield, you know, it's tough to get a return. If they're punting backed up, it's easier. If they're punting on 4th and 1, it's harder to get a return. You're obviously playing to stop the fake first. Make sure you get the ball back to your offense. If you're playing on 4th and 17, obviously with them backed up on the -20, now your return yards are significantly different. And so you guys asked me a few years ago, like, you know, do I like the statistics? And I say on the punt game, I think they're not very good. And because they just lump every single punt and every single punt return into the same category. And it would be like for us on our punt net, we punted the ball from around midfield, sometimes not very well in the last game, but from around midfield a lot. Well, we're not going to have nearly the same net as a team who's punting backed up a lot, you know. But our offense moves the ball a lot, and we're punting around that area of the field. It's a good problem to have. But if you just look at bottom line stats, and it doesn't look great.
Follow-up on kickoffs.
What's that?
I did have a follow-up on kickoffs.
Okay, yeah.
Troy Vincent had the comments last week about ceremonial play, and I know you've always said whatever the rules are, we'll play them, but within that, he said that, you know, the plan was to consult with special teams coordinators around the league. I'm just wondering, when do you start thinking about maybe offering some thoughts on how to make kickoff returns more of a valuable play again?
Yeah, I don't know if this is a great answer, but I feel like if they come to me, I'll certainly give my opinion. I'll give them all of it, really. If they don't come to me, I'm really not going to reach out to them for a whole lot. I mean, I love coaching the game. I love coaching the game. I love being around the players. I love the challenge of game day, and I love seeing, you know, guys accomplish something that maybe they didn't think possible. My least favorite thing is like dealing with all that kind of stuff, to be honest with you, although I do have a lot of opinions, but I think sometimes it's just difficult. Really my job, if I'm going to do well at my job, it's going to take all my energy to kind of focus on that. So I've always kind of stayed that way. I do hope at the end of the day that whatever they put in place, that the plays play out, because right now there's just a high percentage of plays that aren't playing out, and it's not any fun for me. It's not fun for the players. I don't think it's fun for the fans. You know what I mean? And so ultimately you want something where there's going to be an outcome decided at the end of that play, good or bad. You'll be able to help your team win or lose, you know, and you're going to be a factor in the game one way or the other. And so hopefully whatever they do, they get more plays to play out.